Major updates around Kellen Moore in the Saints head coaching search. Tom Pelissero took to social media and provided the latest update saying that the Saints plan to meet with Kellen Moore again after the Super Bowl. Now, it is worth noting, under NFL rules, the sides can't speak again until February 9th after the big game is done. So just wanted to give you guys that information. But this is a very strong sign that he's the top candidate to be the next head coach. And I'll tell you right now, if all things go well, if all things work out, we have a head coach. I pretty much feel like it's just put pen to paper. It's the formality of the meeting. It's, all right, how much are we making? How long is the contract? All of that pretty much figured out. It's just a matter of making it an official decision. So I want to hear your one-word reaction. I want to get the gauge and the pulse of the Who Dat Nation. One-word reaction to the latest Kellen Moore news. He's interviewing with the Saints after the Super Bowl. I think that my one word is awesome. What is yours? Get down in the comments. Now, coming up in today's show, we're going to dive into the latest updates around Kellen Moore because Diana Rossini had a lot of things to say. And then we also have to dive into Ian Rappaport, more from Tom Pelissero, everything in between, Nick Underhill. There's so many updates around Kellen Moore. But then also Chris Olave, he discussed the idea of Kellen Moore being the next head coach. And, there's a report. There's some chatter. Maybe Kellen Moore isn't in love with the idea of the Saints job, but actually, he's not in love with the Saints quarterbacks. We're going to dive into that here in today's show. So going back to Tom Pelissero, let's talk about this update. Because obviously, Kellen Moore is interviewing for the Saints after the Super Bowl. But this report right here is a big, big indicator of what the New Orleans Saints actually believe and where their mindset is at between Mickey Loomis and Gayle Benson. I mean, Mickey Loomis is informing candidates that they're not going to make a decision until after the Super Bowl. To me, that's saying we're interviewing Kellen Moore, barring some insane, crazy thing, he's our head coach. Just letting you know, you're not out, but it's pretty much out. So, it's pretty clear that Kellen Moore is the front runner. By pretty clear, I mean it's crystal clear. Obviously, the New Orleans Saints want Kellen Moore. This has been a very obvious thing over the course of the last few weeks at this point. And fun fact, if Kellen Moore takes this interview and he ends up actually doing the interview, he could just stay in New Orleans after the game. He can go win the Super Bowl. He can go home, get a nice, good night's sleep, wake up, get some breakfast at Cafe Du Monde, get some beignets. Then go have your meeting. Go put pen to paper and be the next Saints head coach. I mean, that's pretty cool that he doesn't even have to go back to Philadelphia. I mean, he just could stick around in New Orleans, so pretty cool there. But Chris Olave, he also weighed in on the idea of Kellen Moore being the head coach. Ian Rappaport has reported multiple things like this around Kellen Moore being the next head coach. He's also done a really good job, and I'm talking about Kellen Moore, he's done a really good job of being kind of hidden in the shadows, it feels like. When originally Kellen Moore was a head coaching candidate, it was kind of all over the place. However, some guys left and decided they didn't want to be the head coach. Some guys, they joined the conversation. Some guys were just never interested. Kellen Moore's been the one consistent one throughout this whole process, one of the consistent ones throughout this whole process. And Chris Olave loves the idea of hiring a head coach with Super Bowl experience. He's saying, when asked, what would it mean to hire Kellen Moore? He said that's huge. Just to have somebody that has reached the Super Bowl and who has the possibility to win it, comes in and be the next head coach, that's absolutely huge. I'm excited to see who the next head coach is. I'm going to be a better version of myself and try to help them win. And look, Kellen Moore can be creative. One of the big things that I have been harping on and praising him for is the fact that he can adjust and adapt to the roster and the skill sets on the roster. So for Kellen Moore, I think he can scheme up plays to fit all of these four players and then, of course, the rest of the roster. But when it comes to, what's going to happen quarterback-wise, look, you can have all these weapons, but I didn't put a quarterback here on for a reason. You're not tied to Derek Carr. You're not tied to Spencer Rattler. You're not tied to Jake Haener. But a certain quarterback does come to mind. And it's a mobile quarterback. And it's a quarterback who's good with his legs. And it's a quarterback who's a little bit faster than Jalen Hurts. And it's a quarterback who, quite frankly, still don't know if he's good or bad. Like, sure, there's been good things. Sure, there's been bad things. Get him a good situation. You reunite him with Chris Olave. He's a free agent. I'm just saying this could be a good little trio here. Hear me out. Kellen Moore is the head coach and play caller. Chris Olave is your wide receiver, and Justin Fields a quarterback. I mean, back in the day, way back in time when they were at the Ohio State University, Chris Olave was the leading wide receiver when Justin Fields was the quarterback. And on top of that, the total stats that they were able to accomplish together, Chris Olave from Justin Fields to Chris Olave, 99 receptions, 1,578 yards, 19 touchdowns, 75.1 yards per game. I think that might be a good little situation here because coming up next, Kellen Moore actually unhappy with the Saints quarterback situation. So we're going to dive into that. I brought up the idea of Justin Fields. We're going to dive into Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, and who's currently on the roster here in just a second. Got some interesting news and notes that we got to dive into, but really quick. Today's show would not be made possible if it weren't for our awesome friends over at Game Time. I cannot encourage you to download the Game Time app enough. It is the best ticketing app in the whole wide world. I have been able to create so many memories in 2025 already. It's your turn. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Now, if you're looking for tickets to go see the Pels, if you're looking to get tickets to the big game, if you're in New Orleans, if you're looking to get tickets to Shaq's Funhouse, Burt Kreischer's coming to New Orleans as well, download the Game Time app. You can get $20 off your first purchase. Use those $20 in savings on the concessions. Get yourself a T-shirt. I don't care what you do. It's your $20. We're here to give it to you. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. Don't forget to check out the Game Time Picks feature. It filters out the fluff to show you the best seats for the best value for concerts, comedy shows, theater, and everything in between. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off. That's code CHATSPORTS in the Game Time app to get $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to Game Time. Download the app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Alrighty, so Diana Rossini, she recently put out a report from the Senior Bowl that there was a, quote, scuttlebutt around Kellen Moore and the New Orleans Saints. And this was coming from the Scoop City podcast, Diana Rossini's podcast. Definitely recommend you check it out. There was actually a little scuttlebutt about whether or not Kellen would want this job. He's talking about the Saints, obviously. And it's due to the fact that New Orleans doesn't have a quarterback. They're already in a place that was concerning. With that being said, I think he's coming around on it. From what I'm hearing, maybe this is the right spot for me. So my takeaway is Kellen Moore, Saints fans, great news. He's just like us. He's not happy with the quarterback situation. He knows that it is not a good deal. He knows it needs to be better. So if I'm Kellen Moore, I'm looking to change the quarterback situation here. And if I'm Kellen Moore, I'm not tied to any of the guys that are currently on the depth chart. And if I'm Kellen Moore, just like Saints fans, I'm sure a lot of y'all can share this sentiment, I would move on from Derek Carr. But that doesn't mean that I think Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener is going to be this absolutely insane, massive development out of nowhere. They still both need work. That being said, Kellen Moore, I think, gives them an opportunity to possibly succeed. Either way, you're going to have to either roll with Carr, roll with Rattler, roll with Haener, or sign a bridge quarterback, draft somebody. I don't know what you're going to have to do. What I do know is I miss Drew Brees, and I miss the Drew Brees era. It was the golden era of Saints football, and honestly, the golden era of the NFL. So if you agree with me, hit the sub button. Drew Brees is the GOAT, one of the best players to ever play the great sport of football. Definitely the best to ever rock the black and gold. Alrighty, so I will say this. When you fix the cap space issues, that does solve a lot of problems because if you had more money to spend this year, the New Orleans Saints would be able to cut Derek Carr and it really wouldn't be that much of a problem. But because they have so little money to spend, you're setting yourself up for a really tough situation. And even if you did roll with Derek Carr, it's not like you have a ton of money to give him a bunch of extra weapons and an improved line and a better defense. So, like, those are all things to consider. Like, you fix the cap space, this solves a lot. If you fix the cap space, you roll with Spencer Rattler, you roll with Jake Haener, you roll with a different quarterback, you can put a lot of money towards building around them. I want to go back to what Diana Rinicini says, though. They do have Carr under contract, but there's also an understanding throughout the league that New Orleans needs another year to rebuild this thing. They are in cap hell, and they're comfortable understanding that, which I will say, great news there. They know their limitations. They're not expecting Kellen Moore to come in here and, let's just say, get the job and turn the whole thing around right away. They know they need someone who's patient with them. The Saints know they need somebody who's going to be patient with the team, and the team needs somebody who's going to be patient with the Saints. So still to come, we got to talk about, is Derek Carr a cap casualty this offseason? I think that he could be. We've already talked about Chris Olave on the head coaching search, and I do think that at the end of the day, what Chris Olave had to say is a very, very big deal because he is one of the top guys on your offense, and he's a guy who ideally would find a lot of success with Kellen Moore's offense. But just talking about Derek Carr, I'm going to be totally honest here. He's just not worth $51 million next season. Like, if you don't touch Derek Carr's contract at all, it's $51 million. He's not worth $51 million. There's only a handful of quarterbacks in the league that are. Derek Carr's not one of them. So if you were to cut Derek Carr in 2025, here's how you can make your cap savings work. If you cut him today, $1.3 million you save. However, if you cut him after March 16th, which for the record, he has to be able to pass a physical by March 17th, otherwise he hits a $30 million guaranteed cap hit. So there's that. But if you make him a post-June 1st designation, you save $30 million this year, which is pretty good news. You don't get that money until after June 1st, though, on June 2nd, which is not the opening wave of free agency. So a lot of the top guys that you could use that $30 million on are gone. Now, here's where things get interesting. In 2026, you actually save a lot more money than if you made him a post-June 1st cut this year. So in 2026, you make him a pre-June 1st cut, you save $32.8 million. Remember, post-June 1 this year, you save $30. Pre-June 1st next year, $32.8. Post-June 1st next year, $50 million. So, again, I'm going to go back to it. Derek Carr is not worth $50 million. But if you're able to deal with it one more year, restructure the contract. Obviously, if you restructure the contract, the cap hit's going to be different next year. But that's my point. Like, there's two ways to go about this. You slightly restructure it, you cut him now. I just don't think he's worth $51 million this year. No matter what, though, Kellen Moore is going to have the power to make his decision at the quarterback position. It's not going to be Mickey Loomis's. It's not going to be Spencer Rattler or Taysom Hill weighing in or Derek Carr saying, oh, I've been here, I'm the vet. You know, Jake Haener, I got drafted before Rattler. None of that matters. Nobody in the building has ties to the new head coach. So you could see a completely different quarterback room. The Kellen Moore will have the power to make his decision at the quarterback spot. But reminder, we got to wait a little bit longer. The Saints can't hire Kellen Moore until after the Super Bowl. So till then, kick your feet up, watch the Eagles play, and see how well this offense might look with the Saints team. I will say I think that the Saints will be hiring Kellen Moore. I think we should expect it the day after the Super Bowl, bright and early, February 10th. Come on. I feel like it's pretty much a lock. Hopefully he doesn't drop out. Fingers crossed. But speaking of the Super Bowl, I wanted to ask this question. Not who you think is going to win, but who are you rooting for? The Eagles or the Chiefs? Personally, I'm rooting for the halftime show to be absolutely awesome. That's just me. Let me know in the comment section. Saints fans, y'all stay golden. Thank you so much for hanging out with us in today's video. A little bit longer of a show, but a lot of information to share. We will see you guys next time.